I would get the opportunity to speak at graduation, and most of all, introduce Miss Gusfield. I was shocked when she came up to me and asked me if I would like to introduce her today. My first thought immediately was just wow. Out of the 2 years I was in your class, I was probably the quietest student you ever had. And you want me to speak in front of everyone at graduation. I just couldn't believe it. But Miss Gusfield is someone who will always surprise you. Whether by giving you more options on an exam than she had promised, or by beginning her class by showing off her dance skills. Miss Gusfield always brings both life and spirit to class, from the start with her love of music and dance. For me, sharing a passion with a teacher that I admire is amazing. Here are a couple ways you might guess that Miss Gusfield enjoys dancing if you never had a class with her. She's always playing music as we walk into class. Another thing, like any dancer, Miss Gusfield low-key busts out dance moves on the side if you watch carefully. And sometimes, if you don't watch that carefully, she'll break one out for fun. Once I even tested her to see if she would teach us to dance during class time. Sadly, that didn't happen. I could talk about Miss Gusfield and dancing for the entire time, but instead I'll just share one moment in one of her classes that was meaningful to me and I think really shows what kind of person Miss Gusfield is. One class, she had everyone bring in an object that represented what made us American. Immediately, as one of the few in the room who was a child of an immigrant, it was difficult trying to find anything to share. However, the reason this class was the most memorable for me because Miss Gusfield shared her story. I remember her getting emotional. To see a teacher allow herself to be so vulnerable and open made this class and every class with Miss Gusfield memorable. Miss Gusfield is a teacher who has never given up on me as a student and individual. I learned to be proud of where I come from in her class, and that even though the struggles of history may repeat themselves, I have the power to make a difference in the history books. She helped me to see that my experience matters in the world, and for that, I will forever be grateful. Also, let's go Warriors in Game 5. Without further ado, I would like to introduce your guest speaker, Ms. Gusfield.
Thank you, Keanu. And congratulations, class of 2017. You made it! It seems like just yesterday when some of you were bright-eyed sophomores in my world history class, and then eager and anxious juniors in my US history class, and now here you are. I'm deeply honored to have the opportunity to address you all today. I would like to start by doing something I've seen other speakers do at large gatherings, and am embarrassed to admit I have not yet done myself. I would like to start by acknowledging that this ceremony is being held today on Ohlone land. I would like to recognize the strength, resilience, and capacity of the Ohlone people. For anyone unfamiliar, the Ohlone are the indigenous people of this area. For almost 10 years, I have intended to begin all of my history courses by acknowledging the Ohlone, past and present. And each year I forget or get swept up in something different without giving it much reflection. In truth, there is very little pressure. In truth, there is very little pressure to prioritize this acknowledgement. It's not yet common practice in this country the way it is at many official gatherings in Australia, for example. My spell check software, perhaps created not far from here on the same Ohlone land, doesn't even recognize the word Ohlone. It suggests instead online or alone. Read into that whatever you will. But by not acknowledging the Ohlone people, both past and present, my leadership inadvertently supports the erasure of indigenous people and reinforces the myth that what is here now represents always represents the norm, represents the inevitable, represents destiny, represents progress. So thank you, class of 2017, for allowing me the opportunity to acknowledge this myth, to apologize publicly for the part I have played in the erasure of Indigenous Americans, specifically the Ohlone, and to assert a new personal commitment, perhaps a new Lick tradition, perhaps a new Facebook debate, that I can do better, that we can do better, that seemingly small disruptions of the status quo, seemingly small shifts in routine can be transformative. The central question of my address today is, how can we best create positive, transformative change? When I was first asked to speak today, I was truly daunted by the responsibility of holding this moment of celebration for you. And this truly is a moment of celebration. Congratulations again. But for me, and I think for a lot of us, this has been a really hard year. I have largely been in a state of functional grief for much of this school year. In my personal life, I have experienced a lot of loss. Politically, I have also felt the rawness of grief, as I know many of us have. This is a year in which we have contended with homelessness and gentrification, a massive refugee crisis, police violence, white nationalist terrorism, transphobia, homophobia, Islamophobia, attacks on immigrants, free speech, the environment, healthcare, women's rights, and the seemingly insurmountable cultural divisions within the nation. It is a time when it is difficult to distinguish truth from fiction. Needless to say, it has been hard this year to feel celebratory, to feel positive about the future. Author Rebecca Solnit gives me some solace. In her re-released book, Hope in the Dark, originally written in the aftermath of 9/11, she discusses the concepts of optimism, pessimism, and hope. She says, hope is not the belief that everything was, is, or will be fine. The evidence is all around us of tremendous suffering and tremendous destruction. Optimists think it will all be fine without our involvement. Pessimists take the opposite position. Both excuse themselves from acting. In contrast to the certainty of optimism and pessimism, Solnit asserts, hope locates itself in the premises that we don't know what will happen, and in the spaciousness of uncertainty is room to act. In the spaciousness of uncertainty is room to act. I imagine you are all full of uncertainties in this moment. This major life event, this ending and new beginning, and you get the additional pleasure of having your personal life transition coincide with a major societal upheaval. I can relate. I graduated from high school in the spring of 2002, just 9 months after 9/11. During our senior year, some of the boys in my class worried about a draft for the war in Afghanistan, and then later, in my freshman year of college, the war in Iraq. In the spaciousness of uncertainty, there is room to act. This has also been a year of some seriously encouraging action. We have seen athletes protest police violence, Indigenous people fight to protect water, a women's march set a new record for public protest, judges uphold anti-discrimination laws, Muslims pay to rebuild vandalized Jewish cemeteries, Jews pay to repair arson damage at mosques, lawyers become prison abolitionists, and youth advocate for the expansion of voting rights. On every issue of injustice, suffering, and destruction, people are mobilizing towards action, towards positive transformation. So what actions will your class take? You guys have already begun to answer this, which has both unified and divided you, as some have alluded to earlier. It does not surprise me that your class has experienced some division this year. Lick is not a bubble, impervious to the outside influences of cliques in our country at large. The existence of cliques among humans is totally natural. UC Berkeley's John Powell, professor of law, African American studies, and ethnic studies, argues that cliques are a response to fear, and that diversity of any kind increases fear. He argues that in the face of this fear, we have choices. We can break, we can bond, or we can bridge. Breaking means fighting to protect ourselves, explicit conflict, war. Bonding means getting really close with the ones that are most like us, staying where we feel most comfortable, the least threatened. And bridging means first questioning whether or not our fear is justified. And if the answer is no, taking concrete action to connect across difference. Concrete action to promote justice. By challenging the status quo, however, by speaking up to promote justice, that can be legitimately dangerous. As we saw last week when two courageous white men were killed in Portland for interrupting the harassment of a young Muslim woman wearing hijab. This is a terrifying precedent and a terrifying challenge to potential bridge builders. I won't dismiss that. I won't lie to you and risk putting you in harm's way by pretending that it's always easy or safe to act. You know it's not. Your parents know it's not. Still, Powell claims we have a choice. Graduation and societal upheaval offer an opportunity for us to reevaluate our actions. Those of us who have chosen division can learn to be more courageous. We can critically examine our fears and learn to distinguish true danger from tribal neuroses. We can learn to become bridge builders. For those of us already thinking about reaching out, it's time to act, even in small ways. It's time, as your history teachers often say, to get off the fence. That's for you. So graduates, community, I want you all to know that I am truly and sincerely less afraid of a future in which your courage, your creativity, and your enthusiasm is unleashed. Graduates, my confidence in you has little to do with what school you are going to next year or what you end up doing for a living. I want you to know that your value does not lie in your name brand college, or how much money you make, or how large an audience you attract with your first TED Talk. Your worth does not lie in your productivity, or your title, or your popularity. My confidence in you lies in knowing that after 4 years at Lick, you are joining me in the adult world with the analytical skills to identify systems of power and recognize injustice, the listening skills that allow you to bridge across difference, and the technical skills to construct creative solutions to real problems. That's my fancy version of head, heart, hands. It's okay if you feel shaky on some of these areas, but remember, in the spaciousness of uncertainty, there is room to act, and it is time to choose action. Some of you have already done so once this year when you organized a walkout after the election. Others similarly chose action by staying behind for clear, principled, and valid reasons. One of the great adventures of adulthood is learning to develop your own internal compass. Remember, you don't need anyone's permission to stand up for what you believe in. As a dancer and an academic, I sometimes get confused about how to make important decisions. Do I rely on my head with logic, reason, pro-con lists, critical thinking, and analysis? Or do I lead with my heart, my stomach, my shoulders, my breath, my body? Western culture emphasizes leadership of the head. I think, therefore I am. Early Enlightenment philosopher René Descartes, France, 1637. But our bodies also have a great deal to teach us if we learn how to listen better. According to the internet, more on that in a second, In many indigenous cultures, when people feel unwell, it is common for healers to ask, when was the last time you danced? When was the last time you sang? When was the last time you told a story? When was the last time you sat alone in stillness? The wisdom here is as simple as it is valuable. In order to be healthy, we need to regularly engage with the arts and with some kind of meditation. We need it. But this wisdom is also largely dismissed in Western societies. Even as students scramble to fill their schedules with extracurricular activities, the arts are often the first to be cut in lean times. It is telling that I could not find any academically reliable or specific reference for this anecdote. Some sites I found credited the Cree people of Canada, others traditional African shamans. Another site suggested indigenous people of Papua New Guinea. Like the word Ohlone, waving spell check's red underline flag, this lack of reliable citation here carries weight. It says, don't take this seriously. Like the Ohlone, however, by not acknowledging the source of this knowledge, we actually erase it. We can deepen our commitment to action by paying more attention to our bodies. Your body can be powerful intuition. It can help you decide when a risk is safe, productive, and maybe even a little fun. And it can alert you when a risk is too dangerous. Let's take a moment. Put both your feet flat on the floor. Everybody, try this out. Take a deep breath. Let it out. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable. I'd like you to try to think of a time when you felt ashamed. Can you identify where in your body that memory lives? Now I'd like you to think of a time when you felt proud. Where in your body does that memory show up? Take a deep breath in. Go ahead and open your eyes. That might have been a little too fast, and I encourage you to go try some more of that on your own at home if you want. But this and other embodied practices can be especially useful in times of transition, when you're deciding who your new friends will be, or when you are faced with how to respond to the suffering and destruction of our historical moment. But the body can also be misleading. It can trick us into irrational fear of difference. And we all, now more than ever, must learn to develop sophisticated strategies to distinguish truth from myth. To conclude, you guys are almost there. I can't promise you an easy life or a perfect world. I can't tell you exactly how to act moving forward, but I know that the moment is ripe for action, and that in order to act in the name of justice, we must commit to examining our own fears and to distinguishing truth from fiction. I teach history because it helps me remember that things are constantly changing, that grief and hope always coexist, that a variety of human societies can be influenced and survived. We stand today on Ohlone land in the middle of great upheaval. This land has already seen great change, and more is coming. We have important choices to make today about how we listen, how we learn, and how we act moving forward. I trust you, class of 2017, to develop your own sophisticated way of determining truth. And then I trust you to act on it. Congratulations, graduates.